The offseason never really slows down for Philadelphia, and that is exactly why this moment feels so important for the Eagles. Even with the season officially in the rearview mirror, the league keeps moving, decisions keep stacking up, and the organization finds itself at the center of conversations that can shape the next championship window. This stretch between late winter and early spring has quietly become one of the most influential periods in professional football. And for a team with Super Bowl ambitions, every signal matters. There has been a growing sense around the league that something significant could be brewing behind the scenes in Philadelphia. Not a blockbuster trade or a splashy signing just yet, but a decision that impacts the very structure of the team. The kind of move that does not always dominate headlines at first, but ends up defining how a season unfolds. When that type of buzz starts circulating, it usually points toward the coaching staff, especially on a team that prides itself on continuity and stability. One of the biggest storylines to emerge recently centers on the future of the Eagles' defensive leadership. There was genuine concern inside the organization after it became clear that the defensive coordinator had seriously contemplated stepping away from coaching altogether. That possibility alone sent ripples through the building, because replacing a mind like that is not something you do casually or quickly. For a franchise that just leaned on elite defense to reach the sport's biggest stage, the idea of losing that architect understandably caused unease. The reality is that this has been a year-to-year situation for a while now. When a coach has spent decades grinding through film, game plans, and brutal schedules, the question of retirement is never far away. After finally reaching the pinnacle and lifting a championship trophy, the temptation to walk away on top becomes very real. There were signs last season that suggested that moment could have arrived sooner rather than later. Even if it was never officially announced, ultimately, the Eagles were able to convince their defensive leader to return for at least one more season. That decision alone provides massive short-term relief. It preserves scheme continuity, keeps player development on track, and avoids forcing the team into a rushed search for a replacement. At the same time, it does not completely close the door on uncertainty. There is still a sense that this could change again, and that reality has forced the organization to quietly explore contingency plans. During that brief window of uncertainty, the Eagles did their homework. They gauged interest, evaluated potential fits, and considered both internal and external options in case a sudden transition became unavoidable. That tells you how seriously they took the possibility of losing their defensive coordinator. It also highlights how carefully this front office operates when the stakes are high and the margin for error is slim. The timing of all this also helps explain some recent staff movement. When assistants are presented with opportunities elsewhere, especially opportunities to run a defense of their own, they cannot always afford to wait. If the future of the top job is unclear, betting on yourself becomes the logical move. From that perspective, certain departures make more sense, even if they sting in the moment for fans who value continuity. What makes this situation even more fascinating is the state of the Eagles' roster on defense. This is not a rebuilding unit or a group lacking star power. It is loaded with young, high-end talent at every level, from the defensive line to the secondary. For any coordinator, stepping into this role would be one of the most attractive jobs in the league. The foundation is already built, and the expectations are championship level from day one. That is why the organization would have no shortage of interest if a change were required. Veterans with experience, former Eagles assistants, and rising coaches around the league would all view this as a rare opportunity. The challenge would not be finding candidates, but choosing the right one to match the personality of the city. The head coach and the locker room, scheme fit, leadership style, and adaptability would all be under the microscope. There is also the broader context of how the Eagles are evolving as a team. Financial commitments on offense and the natural aging curve there mean that the defense is becoming an even bigger focal point for the future. Drafting, developing, and eventually extending defensive stars is now central to the long-term plan. Stability on that side of the ball is not a luxury, it is a necessity for the players. Having clarity at the top matters, knowing who is calling the shots, how roles will be defined, and what the vision is going forward allows them to fully commit during the off-season program. Even a hint of uncertainty can linger in the background, which is why locking things in, even temporarily, carries real value. At the same time, retirement decisions are deeply personal. Walking away from football after a lifetime in the sport is not something that happens overnight. Coaches, much like players, often wrestle with the loss of routine, identity, and purpose that comes with stepping aside. It is not unusual for that internal debate to stretch on, especially after a season that ends with success rather than disappointment. That is why, even with the current plan in place, the Eagles are realistic about the future. They know that at some point, a transition will come. Whether that happens after this upcoming season or later down the road remains to be seen. What matters now is that the team is prepared, informed, and positioned to act decisively when the time arrives. For now, Philadelphia moves forward with continuity, confidence, and one of the most respected defensive minds still on the sideline. The questions have not fully disappeared, but they have been pushed just far enough into the background to allow the focus to return to football, preparation, and the pursuit of another title. Even with that short-term stability secured, the ripple effects of this situation are still being felt across the organization. When a team understands that a major coaching change is inevitable at some point, every move begins to carry an added layer of meaning. How players are developed, how assistants are groomed, and how schemes are taught all become part of a longer chess match rather than simple year-to-year planning. The Eagles are clearly operating with that awareness right now. One of the most interesting elements is how attractive this defensive coordinator role would be if it ever opened up. This is not a situation where a coach would be walking into chaos or rebuild. Quite the opposite. The roster is stocked with explosive pass rushers, versatile linebackers, and young defensive backs who can thrive in both man and zone concepts. That kind of talent gives any coordinator flexibility. And flexibility is everything in today's NFL. Because of that, the Eagles have the luxury of patience. They do not need to force a decision or rush a succession plan just to calm outside noise internally. They can continue evaluating how assistants grow, how players respond to different voices, and how adaptable the defense remains within its current framework. All of that information becomes invaluable if and when a change becomes necessary. There is also the reality that schemes evolve, but principles tend to stay the same in Philadelphia. Physicality up front, discipline on the back end, and a relentless approach to creating pressure without constantly blitzing have become part of the team's identity. Any future coordinator, whether promoted from within or brought in from outside, would be expected to honor those principles rather than completely reinvent the wheel. From a player perspective, this matters more than fans sometimes realize. Defensive players often thrive when terminology, expectations, and teaching styles remain consistent. Sudden schematic overhauls can slow development, especially for younger players still learning how to process the game at full speed. By keeping continuity for now, the Eagles are protecting that growth curve and allowing their defensive core to keep building momentum. Another layer to this discussion is how closely coaching decisions are tied to the championship window. Philadelphia is not a team looking 5 years down the road. They are firmly in win-now mode, balancing the urgency of competing for titles with the responsibility of sustaining success. That balance becomes much harder to maintain if both sides of the ball are dealing with coordinator turnover at the same time. That is why convincing their defensive leader to stay, even temporarily, carries such weight. It buys time, it keeps the window wide open, and it allows the front office to focus its energy on roster construction, contract planning, and draft strategy, rather than scrambling to fill one of the most important roles on the staff. Of course, none of this guarantees that the future will be smooth. Coaching transitions rarely are. No matter how prepared a team believes it is, personal decisions can change quickly, especially when health, family, and long-term quality of life enter the equation. Football is demanding in ways that only those inside the building truly understand, and walking away can become more appealing as the years stack up. Still, there is a sense that this particular situation is being handled with honesty and mutual respect. The organization understands what this coach has meant to its recent success, and he understands the unique opportunity that still exists in Philadelphia. That mutual understanding is often the difference between a messy exit and a smooth transition. Looking ahead, the Eagles will continue to operate as if every season matters, because it does. They will prepare as though their defensive coordinator will be there on opening day, while quietly acknowledging that nothing in this league is guaranteed beyond the next kickoff. That dual mindset is not easy to maintain, but it is necessary at this level. The encouraging part for fans is that no matter how this eventually plays out, the foundation on defense is strong. Talent, culture, and expectations are already in place. Those elements do not disappear overnight, even when coaching staffs change. They are built over years, and right now, Philadelphia is benefiting from that investment. As the offseason continues to unfold, more decisions will come into focus. Roster moves, contract extensions, and draft preparation will all start to dominate the conversation. Yet this underlying storyline remains one of the most important to monitor, because it touches everything else. Coaching stability shapes player confidence, game planning, and ultimately, results on Sundays. For now, the Eagles move forward with clarity where it matters most. They have their leader in place, their defense intact, and their championship ambitions very much alive. The long-term questions can wait, but the preparation cannot. And that balance defines where this franchise stands as it pushes toward another season, with everything still on the table. As the calendar keeps turning, the pressure to maximize every advantage only intensifies. Round the league, teams are reshuffling staffs, resetting priorities, and trying to find any edge they can before the next phase of the offseason arrives. In Philadelphia, that urgency is paired with confidence, because the core of what made this team successful is still firmly in place. That matters when expectations are not just high, but uncompromising. What stands out most is how intentional the Eagles have been with timing. Nothing feels rushed, and nothing feels reactive, even when uncertainty briefly crept in. The response was measured and calculated. That approach reflects an organization that understands its identity and trusts its process, even when external noise grows louder. This stretch is also critical for the players who are quietly becoming leaders within the defense. With so much young talent emerging, consistency in messaging and philosophy allows those voices to grow stronger. Leadership is not just about experience, it is about confidence. And confidence is built through clarity, knowing what is expected, how success is defined, and who is setting the tone makes a real difference once the season arrives. There is also a competitive edge that comes from unfinished business. Success raises the standard, but it also sharpens the hunger. Staying together, keeping familiar systems in place, and pushing for incremental improvement can sometimes be more powerful than dramatic change. The Eagles seem to understand that fine line, especially on the defensive side of the ball. As preparations continue, attention will inevitably shift toward evaluations, meetings, and on-field work. Each phase adds another layer to the bigger picture, and each decision feeds into what this team believes it can accomplish next. For Philadelphia, the goal is not just to remain relevant, but to stay dominant. And that mindset shapes everything happening behind closed doors. With so many moving parts across the league, stability itself becomes an advantage. The Eagles are leaning into that advantage right now, trusting that continuity, combined with elite talent, can keep them ahead of the curve. And as the offseason unfolds further, the choices made in these quieter moments will echo loudly once the games begin and the spotlight returns. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. In the NFL, where every loose word can turn into a headline, a seemingly harmless detail has ignited speculation inside the Eagles building. A casual exchange, an off-camera moment, and suddenly the question everyone has been asking appears to have an answer. Philadelphia may have accidentally revealed who is set to line up as a starter alongside QUINYON. Nothing has been made official, but among insiders and sharp-eyed observers, the rumor is gaining traction fast. The Eagles have gone out of their way to keep this decision under wraps, insisting publicly that the competition remains wide open. Privately, however, the mood feels different. According to people familiar with the locker room dynamics, the coaching staff may have already settled on a preferred option, even if the final word hasn't been spoken out loud. The name circulating isn't shocking because of raw talent, but because of how cleanly it fits into the defensive blueprint being drawn behind closed doors. The idea, according to the speculation, is to pair Mitchell with someone who mirrors his intensity and speed, creating a young, aggressive tandem capable of disrupting modern offenses. Mobility, anticipation, and versatility appear to be the key words. This isn't about reputation alone, but about matching skill sets to counter quarterbacks who thrive under pressure and extend plays in more than one sideline conversation. Dak Prescott has reportedly been mentioned as the type of challenge this revamped unit must be prepared to face, a benchmark for what the Eagles believe is coming. What makes the situation even more intriguing is how the supposed leak occurred. It wasn't a press conference slip or a depth chart mistake. but an everyday moment that only gained meaning once connected to recent practice rotations and personnel usage. Analysts quickly notice patterns: fewer reps for some, more trust shown in others. Subtle clues that suggest a decision may already be made internally. Officially, Philadelphia continues to preach patience and competition. Unofficially, the silence feels louder by the day. Round the league, silence often speaks volumes, and in this case, it may already be telling fans exactly who the Eagles expect to see next to QUINYON Mitchell when it truly counts. That's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.